Hello, welcome to Colorful Life channel. I'm Eric. Today we are gonna implement a very exciting idea to create a website and let user to log into this website or connect to this website by their crypto wallet, and then they'll be able to sign in to this website without creating their password. Instead of creating the password, they use the more cryptographic way using the crypto wallet to sign in to this website or sign up their information. And then as long as the wallet is connected, they will be able to access this website. And then it is even more secure than the normal password website. And then all the database, all this user information will be controlled or managed by the Microsoft Azure 365 SharePoint account. So we are gonna use the Microsoft SharePoint as a backend to store all the information of users. So this is the flow. We have the front end on the top, and then we have the backend block on the bottom. So as I mentioned, user would like to access this front end website with the wallet connected, and as long as they are interested in our content, they want to log in or sign up to our website, they connect to their wallet and then input their information, for example, username and email. And then the most important part is that they need to sign this stringified information by their crypto wallet, and then it will generate a signature for those information. So one signature will correspond to only one crypto wallet address as well as one stringified info. So this is the place to make this application so secure. So you will see more in the real action. Then after that, we will store the basic info signature and info into our Microsoft SharePoint at the same time, and then we will be able to manage the user information on our backend. Anything? Excuse me. Yeah, so it is very nice that users in this flow don't need to create their own password, because now the most inconvenient part of login to a website is using password, because there are many passwords that we have and we don't know which is Google GCP, which is the password for GCP, which is the password for Azure, which is the web for Oracle. That makes life very difficult. So this application, I will call it web 2.5 instead of web 3, because we really don't need to connect to the blockchain to make this website. We only need to use the wallet to sign the message, so that we will be able to make use of the benefit of the crypto. Okay, so enough of the theory. Let's get into how we call it, how we implement it. But before that, I'm gonna show you what is the result that we are gonna build. So, okay, this is our website. This website will be built from the on top of the boilerplate that I created before, and then as you can see, this is the boilerplate of the Web3 project. So, we can select different chain, and then we can switch chain, and then we can connect and disconnect wallet. So in this case, I will disconnect. I will disconnect this wallet. I'm using MetaMask. Okay, and then we disconnect, and then you will see that this website asks you to connect the wallet first. And I'm trying to make this website as simple as possible, not too complex, not trying to implement so much CSS or styling thing to make the code messy, and then make you easy to understand the code is the purpose. So you will see everything is in the plain text HTML element, so that you will be able to get to know the code and then implement your own styling on the top of this boilerplate. Okay, cool. Now let's get into how we use it. Firstly, we can select whatever account that we want to log in. For example, I would like to log into my account 3. This is an empty account, and then I haven't used it before. And then I can connect this wallet. No, not this one. I can connect this wallet. I think I need to refresh again because it is still connected to my previous wallet. Okay. And then I will need to disconnect my previous wallet. Okay, this is connected, so I don't want it to be connected. And then I'm going to get into my web account 3, and then disconnect, and then refresh again. You'll see, and then I try to connect with the wallet, and then to make sure that this is the account that we want to connect to this website, click next and connect. It is done. And then we connect our wallet to this website doesn't mean that we've already signed it in, because our SharePoint database still doesn't have our user information in this website. If we want to implement some user logic, we don't only use the address, we use the user information, for example, email or username. So this will be able to link our cryptographic address with a certain information of that us. So we need to sign up. We click here to get into sign up page, and then we input our information. I call it Eric number 3 because I have already created 2 as a test account, and then I will say Eric3 at com. We signed up, and then you see this website asks us to sign the message of our information, and then we sign, and then you can see that our information is here. So let's get to the our SharePoint to see if it is really working. Let's create a okay. This is the SharePoint website that I have created called Graph API, and then there is a list called user info that I also created by clicking new and then list, and then you will be able to create a whole new SharePoint list. And then let's just get into my list, and you can see here there is a Eric number 3, and I have 2 and then 1. This is, as I mentioned, that I have already tested, and this one is the newly created user information. And just as we mentioned, there are 2 very important information. The first one is the basic info signature. We just extend it a little bit. Basic info signature, which is the result of assigning the information from this string, username and then the email. So this is a pretty cool information, and then we assume to make sure this information is what exactly correct, we can compare these two to make sure that this information is the information signed by that user connected the wallet to this website. We will see how to implement it in the real action later, but just you get the idea of this. How to make this website so secure, how to make the user information so secure, because administrator will not be able to make a change of it. For example, I am a hacker or I'm the administrator, want to just secretly change the user's information by inside the backend. And then, for example, I change it to Eric number 4 to pretend there is a Eric number. The account is belong to Eric number 4, but it actually is Eric number 3. And then let's go back to our website. Not here. Okay, so let's go back home, and then you'll see your profile data might be hacked. Please reset and contact administrator. So okay, that means that everything is reset. We need to set it again. So let's set back to Eric 3 and then Eric number 3 at com. Okay, sign up again, and then we need to sign the message again. It means the signature will be changed again. Okay, let's go to the SharePoint to see, and then refresh the page. Awesome. Now it's changed back to Eric 3 because the information was secretly modified by administrator, became invalid, and then the user got notified by assistant, and then the user will need to reset the password, reset the basic information again. That is amazing because this is far more secure than the normal website or normal user administrating system. Okay, so that is what we have. We want to implement all this system in action. Let's get into code section. Okay, just a quick reminder, to start building this application, you will need to have your Azure account and then application created, registered in this Azure Microsoft 365 account. And then to do that, if you don't know how to do that, you can check my previous video tutorial. I will leave the link down below. Okay, and then let's get into the coding section. We can create a new terminal. And then I would just like to create this application on my desktop. Okay, and then we can make as I mentioned that we need to build up this application on top of the boilerplate repository, boilerplate code. So we will copy this. You will also see this link down in the description. And then we will clone, git clone. Okay, and we can see the new directory inside our desktop. We probably rename it. We will call this one as GC, the web 2.5 sign MS 2365. Okay, now we can get okay, now we copy but we don't move, so we can remove the original one, this one. Okay, now the only one left is this one, web 2.5-ms 365. Okay, now we open this one through VS Code, and then we can close this one. Now we are ready to start it from this boilerplate, and then okay, so then we are able to first try to see if the site, our development site, is working properly by inputting yarn div, and then we try to see if it's working by accessing the localhost 3000. Okay, this takes a little bit longer than I expected. Let's try to use it from different tab. Okay, now it's working as we expected, and there is a proof token here, and then we don't need this, we only need this. So let's just delete that link, that unneeded component. I think it is located inside the header section. Okay, it is here, so we remove it, and then we can stop the server first because it drive our computer so slowly, and we don't need something here. The approve ERC20 will delete it, and then we then need to delete the corresponding style sheet here. Okay, start doing our application, and then we can start with creating a sign up TSX under the page component pages directory, and then this is the React component. So we create the sign up component, and it will import the functional component. Then we create the return. We can return it firstly the empty HTML tag, and then return it as a default sign up component, and then it will become a valid component of the React. And then firstly we need to define that what kind of the information that we want user to input, and then we will name it basic info, and then user will need to import the username, and then it's a string, and then you will need to import email, and then it's a string, and then it's a string, not string. Okay, and then firstly now we can start doing the main logic of our sign up. And then firstly we just create some input fields to let user to input their username and email, and then we create it by the input. And then this input is the from Ant Design. Ant Design do a lot of design the CSS style inside the library, so that we don't need to create any CSS styling sheet to have those CSS styling. So it is easy that we just use the Ant Design. And if you want to have your own design, it's fine. Just use the normal input with your CSS, and then we can have a add-on before the name of the label in the very left of this component, input component, and the type will be text, and then it will be the function, callback function when the user change the input, and then we just leave it as empty for now. And then here it will be the same thing. It will be the input email, and then type will be text, and then we also the same, put the empty function as a callback function. Actually it is not after. Okay, then we need to create a button, and then the button will have a onClick function, and then the same, we also let it empty function for now. Okay, and then the button will be called sign up. Actually, yeah, this is not the after, it is before. Okay, I think that's for now. And then for the next, we have the normal empty, the no function tag to let user input their username and email, and then they can submit. And then how to do our main logic to store the username and email is that we need to create a React state, and then this state will have the basic info type, and then the initial value will be the empty object at first, and then we catch it as the basic info. And then next we will create a function called sign up, and this sign up function will be the function to inside the button as a callback. So as soon as user click the sign up, and then this function will be called. Okay, now what will it be inside is that firstly we need to stringify the basic info that user input. Okay, and then next we assign it to a variable called stringified basic info, and then next we will use the web3 data. And then where is this web3 data from is that we used another library called use web3 library, which is the one. Okay, we get to the npm, and it is actually the package created by me. We are using this package, and it will create a web3 object as a global object for the React. If you wrap the top level component inside the just a second, inside the web3 context provider. And then this web3 context provider is from this library. So that is what we do. And then now we have this, and then we can use the web3 data. And then web3 data contains the web3, and then we can use the function called personal sign, and then it will ask user to sign a string, and then this string will be the string that we stringified from the JSON object, which contains basic info that user inputted, username and email. Good. And then the second argument will be the account of the connected wallet, and the third variable will be the password. So you can see here the password, but we don't need to have password, so we let it empty here, and then we assign it a signature argument. Okay, perfect. And next, also the important part, now we have all the information that we want to put it inside our database, which is the username and email. And actually we need to put more than that. We want to put it username and email, as well as the signified basic info, as well as the signature. So this one is just for user sign, but actually we need to store the information including signature and the stringified basic info along with this object. So let's create a new type. This type will be the actual type to be stored in our database. The first one is the title, and the second one is the wallet address, which is connected to our application, and third one is the basic info stringified, is this one, and then fourth one is the stringified basic info. Okay, that's it. And the reason why we want to have this title field is that Microsoft actually have only the default value, so it is necessary to have this field, and we will put this field the same value as the wallet address. Okay, so now let's create this user info object, and then with this, and it will be the type of user info. And the title, as we mentioned, we will have the account address, the wallet address, as the second field does. And then next we will input the basic info signature, which is the signature that we created. And then the last one is the stringified basic info, which is this one. So now we have the object. So the next step is that we need to store this data into our database, right? So things comes a little bit more complicated from this part, because we will need to make use of the library, which is this one, the Microsoft 306 Graph API auth, and this package only allows us to use it inside the node environment instead of browser environment, because the credential is not proper to be put inside the browser. So we will need to make this one in the node environment. How to do that? It's easy. The Next.js framework provides us a way to have the server-side render, and then it also provides the API to let user access. If we create a file called updated user profile, and then this will be our API endpoint. So as long as user input our domain /API/update user profile, and then the HTTP request get will be sent. So that's what we are going to do. We are going to create this file, update user profile, and then we are gonna use this library inside this file, and the file inside here will be run in node environment instead of browser environment. So let's do that. Okay, now let's create a new file inside the API folder called update user profile, and then firstly we will need to create a sync function, and we can use an anonymous function here, and then the input argument will be request and the response, and then this type will be the next the built-in type called next API request and next API response. So we need to import these two types here. Okay, and inside the function, which is the one will be called when we call the API from the browser or from Excel thing. Okay, then we are gonna make use of this library as we mentioned, and there are two library or two things we are gonna use. The first one is get access token, and the second one is the graph API query. And if you are not familiar with this library, you can check my previous video. I will leave the link down to the description. Okay, and then we will only let this allow this request as the post method. So if the user do the get request, and then it will be rejected with the 405 unauthorized method with the arrow called only post. Cool. And then now now we send the response just by the normal object without any type. It is not set, it is not the manner of the TypeScript, so we can define the return or the response type for our API. It means that our API can only respond certain types, and we will define it. First is the arrow, option arrow as a string type, and then the user data as any type. Okay, so this we will export the arrow type, and then you will see that the text editor is yelling that assign arrow function to the variable before exporting as module default. It is because of Next.js doesn't really like us to export default anonymous function. So what we need to do is just to create it as the function, and then export default, and then we create the handler function and then export it. And then next we will need to create a new user info. So what is the new user info? Is that the request body is the request body. So where is the request body from? Actually, let's come into this part. Now we will use the Axial to make the query to our endpoint. It is the Axial post, and now we don't have Axial. We need to import the Axial here, and then it will become okay. So before that, you need to install yarn add Axial, don't forget that. And then we call this API endpoint, and then we input the user info as the argument. So that's what we need to do, and then make it await. So this line of code to send the post request to this endpoint with the body of the user info, and then this will be passed into this function inside the request body, and then when we extract the body from request, then we will get the new user info. So this new user info will be exactly the same as this new user info. And then next we are going to make use of this user info, but before that we will need to do one thing. We will need to get the access token of the Azure, and then pass in the client ID, client secret, and tenant ID. And this one you will need to have the Azure. You will need to have Azure account, and you will need to create the app, register an app, and then you will also need to have the right permission of that. If you are not quite sure how to do that, you can check my previous video. I will leave the link down to the description. Now we have these three, and then we will need to create an environment variable to let user to let our app to access these three. So I'll do it later. Okay, and then this one will be the old response. Okay, so now we get the old response, and just a second, probably we can do it now. New file, we create a file called env, and we need to have client ID equal to your client ID and client secret equal to your client secret and tenant ID equal to your tenant. Okay, tenant ID. So that's what we need to do later. And let's go back here, and then we after getting the response, and then we can check if we actually get the response or not. If no, we just return out. If yes, we're gonna do next step. So next step is using the web3 to create the web3 object. So remember to import the web3 here, and in the web3 we just need to create an empty web3 object because we are not gonna really use the provider inside. We just want to use the helper function inside here. So the point to doing this is that we want to make sure that this is the most important part. We can make sure that if the user info is actually signed by that user, if that user info is modified by somebody else like administrator or hacker, the API will recognize right away by comparing the signature and the stringified info. Okay, so let's do it in action. You will see how it works. So we can use the web3 object accounts recover, and then passing in the stringified info and the user basic info signature. So this function will compare these two and then generate the signer address, and then we will be able to compare if this signer address is actually the address inside the new user info. If no, if this address is not valid, so we will return it with the response 410, and then it will send an error message like make sure the signer is the sender. If it is actually the signer is sender, and then we can do the next operation. So the next operation is create the query object from the query API, the graph API query from this library, and we can make use of this query to operate our database. So the first one, we will get the site, SharePoint site, by passing in the graph API, the site name. Remember that. Okay, let's try. We go to SharePoint, this one, and this SharePoint site, and this one is the SharePoint site. Then we pass in the graph API as a SharePoint site and assign a variable for that. We will call it my site, and then next one we will get the my list inside the SharePoint site. So we use the query dot get list inside and passing in the user info, which is this is a list that we have, right? So this name is user info. So we pass in the user info into the get list site, and then we get the list, right? And then we use the get list site list item inside, and then passing in. Oh, we forgot to put in the get list site ID, right? So we need to have the site ID to get the certain list in this site. Okay, and then we also need to pass the site ID and then list ID, and then we can get all the items from the list. And then the next is that we can look through all the items and then extract the fields from this item. But it seems that there is error. The item explicitly has any type. Okay, I make a mistake here. It is in list. Items in list. Just a second. Oh, sorry. The error is here. Field doesn't exist in iList, but actually this should be item, right? So the mistake is here. We should get items in list, not the get list inside. Get list inside has already been used here, so this one is the not correct the method. So we change it back to the correct one, and then this error comes away, and then we make sure that this item actually exists, and then cast it as the correct type, which is the iUserInfo, and then a variable called item info. Okay. Now we assign this to the existing user variable and make sure that if this existing user exists, if it is, and then we can do something. Okay, so if the existing user exists means that we already have this user inside our list. What we need to do is just update the information of the user, right? So if user input the information there, we just update the information. Variable called create item, and then this item will be done by the query that first create item list item, and then pass in the my site ID and then my list ID, and then followed by the information, the data that we need to create. And you can see here there is a type error. What is the error? This error says that the argument this user info is not assignable to this type, which is defined as an input type of this method, but we are sure that this user info is followed by this available to be written. So what we need to do is just cast it to the type that accepted by this method, and then everything is working fine now, and then we can return the 200 status and then return the created user. If this existing user exists, as I just mentioned, we need to update the user information by the query patch update list item and passing the information, my site ID, my list ID, and the user info ID that we need to update, and then passing the new user info. So it's the same, we need to do the same thing as before, but you can see here the text editor is yelling that there is an issue, property ID does not exist on the user info. Why is that? The reason is that what we need to write into the database only contains the information this one, iUserInfo, but actually what we write into after writing into the data into the database, that Azure will inject the field called ID because they need to ID to index the database. So we know that there is actually an ID, but it is not defined inside the iUserInfo. So now what we need to do is just ignore it. X TypeScript not to yell on this case because we are sure it exists. Then we return the status 200, say return the updated user. And good, that's pretty much what we want to do. And when we go up and we see, oh, this is not using, so we forgot to let list type is the type input argument as the next API response, so we need to do so. And that's pretty much it. And let's go back to site up section and then have a check, and I think that's all we want to do. And the last thing is that we don't really let users, we don't really update the state here to update the basic info user has already inputted, right? What we need to do is that we need to so what we need to do now is to change this part. Okay, we need to set basic info username to EBT. Well, just give me a second. Okay, to the target of the event. And the same thing here, we need to change the email. It should be email. and it's all good. And actually it is not only signed up, right, it's update as well. Okay, perfect. Then we can start try to see if it is working. Okay, and we can run it to see if this application is working. Now we go back here and then try to access the sign up page, and now we are able to access this web page, and then it has these three fields to let us input the information, and we can now we have already connected to this application with the first account, this one, and with 026, and now we try to input the name. We say Eric number 1 and the email is Eric number 1@com, and we sign up and then we sign. I think it is all done, and then we can go back to our backend, refresh the page to see if it is inside. Yes, it is, and then the username is Eric number 1, the email is Eric number 1 as well, so it means it is working fine. So this is pretty much what we can do for this application, and you can see how powerful it is, right? It can make sure everything you can make sure everything is working, and you can make sure that the application can be authorized, or can be checked if the information is correct or not by this code. So the only one allowed to change the information is the user who connects to the wallet. No other else. Administrator, either the hacker, it will be realized right away. So it is very cool, and with the Microsoft backend, we can easily see the information in our SharePoint, and we can delete it, and then we can do the change. Actually, we can do change as well, but it will be realized right away. So it is how this powerful application is, and then how we can use the crypto wallet to create such a powerful administration, or such a powerful authentication website. So I hope this video useful for you. You can find the final code in my GitHub repository. You can clone it and have a try. It is the final version. What I demo to you is only signed up part for you. If you want to see the full version of it, just go ahead to my GitHub repository and then clone it and then use it. I will put the link down to the description. And if you find it useful for you, please click like and thumb up or subscribe. So I will see you in the next video.